China is a multifaceted society. On the one hand, you have the Communist Party of China, major competitor of the United States in military, tech, economic, human rights grounds. So I had a, kind of a combative relationship at times with that government, and we had to be aggressive in holding the line. On the other hand, the other job of being an ambassador is not just to the government of China, but to the 1.4 billion people of China. And I found the Chinese people outside the Communist Party to be extraordinarily entrepreneurial, to be very, very hardworking, creative, innovative, and very civil when you met them. My wife Libby and I didn't encounter any direct anti-Americanism when you're talking to the Chinese people. I encountered a lot of it when I worked with the government of China. And so we decided that, we had to travel in China to get to know party secretaries, governors, business leaders,
Hmm.
universities, and we went most often by high-speed rail because they have a
Right.
magnificent train system. And that's how you get to know people on the train and see the countryside and get to understand the country.
Do we have a knowledge behind those red doors in Beijing? Is it like when we were with the Russians before the collapse, where our intelligence was lacking? Is there a mystery to Xi and the government, or do we actually have a handle on what's going on?
Well, I'd say two things. First, we had daily contact with the government of China. And I spent a lot of time with the Chinese leadership, with ministers, for instance, and so you do get to know them. But the party, the Communist Party, which is so powerful right now, is very good at being opaque. And Chinese politicians, political leaders, do not reveal the private side of them, of their lives, as they do in the United States and most of the rest of the world. So there is a lack of transparency there. And sometimes it's a guessing game, but we did our best, obviously, in working with them to get a sense of what their motivations were. We were, as I said before, I figured about 80% of my job was competing with China on behalf of the United States, and maybe 20% was working on climate change and working on fentanyl, which is a critical issue for us, and on the cooperative side. And so this is not an easy relationship for the United States.
Nicholas, how do you think that the Chinese government wants to proceed with the U.S.? Do they want to engage with the West, or are they comfortable in what's kind of becoming, I guess, a new Cold War, certainly a technological Cold War between China and the West? How do they want to approach it?
That's such a fascinating subject. On the one hand, given the fact that China has the world's largest export economy and manufacturing economy, they have to have ties with the United States, Japan, Korea, and Europe, because that's the market for their economy, and that keeps their GDP growth rate up. So there is a sense, a part of China Inc., which wants to be integrated with the rest of the world. But you're right. I mean, what has emerged over the last several years is a very close strategic partnership between China and Russia, and at times with Iran and North Korea as well. And that's a formidable set of countries. What they're trying to do, what Xi Jinping is trying to do, is offset the real strength of the United States in global competition, and that is that we have alliances in the East Asia with Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Thailand, and Australia. These are treaty alliances, and that gives us a weight and leverage over the Chinese that they don't have. And so they've tried to offset it with these other relationships. But Russia and North Korea and Iran are not the economic powers that Japan certainly is, that India is as a partner of the United States. So I think that's our big advantage. Maybe that's the number one lesson that I learned or relearned as ambassador to China. I'd also been ambassador to NATO, that we have to count on our allies and we have to be respectful of our allies and build those relationships. That's the best way, I think, to deter the Chinese.
Well, that does not perhaps is the view of the Trump administration in terms of how the Trump administration is treating U.S. allies here. Does President Xi and the Chinese government view that as potentially an opening to weaken the U.S., I guess, influence globally?
I think they do. You'll remember after
Yes,
April 2nd,
yes.
when President Trump made his major tariff announcements, the Chinese were very quick to say to the Japanese and South Koreans in particular, let's all get together, the three of us, China, South Korea, and Japan, against the United States. Of course, Japan and South Korea would not
Right.
have it. But the Chinese are seeking those openings. And as the United States, in a way, diminishes our faith in our alliances, the Chinese see that's a real vulnerability for the United States. As we demolished USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, which I think was a major mistake to fire 8,000 people in 2 weeks. That doesn't make much sense. The Chinese swooped in and began to tell
Right.
countries in the South, listen, if the United States is not going to work with you or help you, we will. And so we're in a battle for global
Right.
influence against China. There's no question. And we need a USAID. We need our alliances to be competitive in that battle.